Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time, rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Welcome to Fairy Tale Access. This is the place where we unravel fairy tales that exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. And today, we're going to talk to a group that Plato might have had in mind when he said music is moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, fight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything. This is the position of my next guest from the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. Today I have Art Olson, Jane Olson, and Mary Green. They're board members and founding members of the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, I think.
It will be. So, could you tell me how the Nashua Chamber Orchestra came into existence?
Jane really knows that one.
Well, years ago, there was a music teacher here in town, in Nashua, by the name of Candy Wharton, and she taught strings in the school system. Her program was terminated. There was no more string teaching in around 1985, maybe. The program was terminated, and she decided to take the students in the school system that she had, who were her music students, and form a little chamber orchestra. And she invited some of us who were older to join her. And so that's how it started. We used to rehearse in the Nashua Public Library, and we often performed there and also performed at the First Church in Nashua. Wow. So that's how we started, under Candy Wharton.
That's great. And how do you choose your musicians?
Well, that really is up to our music director currently, David Feltner, and he will audition anybody who is interested in joining us, and we'll make the decision. Very often he will say, well, play with us and we'll see how it goes. The orchestra is always in need of string players, so, violins, violas, cellos. We love to have them come and audition with us. We have these brass and winds. There aren't that many positions open, so we keep a list of those people who have auditioned that we can call on if we need them. So it's really up to the music director to make that decision.
Okay, and how are your music directors chosen?
Well, that's kind of a long process.
Yeah, we form a committee, and the committee lets it be known that there is an opening. And from that, we get a list of people who are interested. And we invite them to come in and do a short conducting session at one of our rehearsals. And then we interview them individually. And eventually, we settle on someone that we think is going to be, perfect for the job. And we propose a contract, and if everything goes well, that's the person we've chosen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And is that the only member that's paid in the Nashua Chamber Orchestra?
No, we also pay our concert mistress, who is the first violin sitting in the first chair, and she is a professional. She has a performing career in the Boston area, and we are very lucky to have her. Her name is Beth Welty, and she's just fabulous. And she really leads the whole orchestra. We in the violin section, I play violin, we really need someone like that to lead us. And it's ever since we did hire her on, it has really, I think, improved the quality of the entire sound of the orchestra.
We also pay guest soloists at concerts, and that's about it, I think.
Yes, that's
Yes.
it. The rest of us are volunteer, and we love doing it.
Oh, that's great.
And it sounds like if we say that we're all amateurs and not paid, that we don't include people who are actually professional musicians. And we have a number of professional musicians who volunteered. They like to play with us, and we don't pay them on this occasion, but they get paid for many other gigs that they do and whatever. So we have a mix of professionals in the orchestra, but actually everybody else is free.
And they come from a variety of backgrounds.
Right.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we have actually 4 physicians in the orchestra.
Oh, really?
And so if anyone faints, well, we're actually ready anytime.
Oh, perfect.
And but we have one player who is a professional constructor of violins and violas, a luthier, we call them. And we have professionals from all sorts of backgrounds. And we also have a wide range of ages in the group. It turns out that we have some high school students, and some of us are in our 80s. Not these 2, but
Okay.
and so it's just a question of whether they're able to play the music and can make the rehearsals, rather than something to do with their ages or anything of that sort.
And how often do you do rehearsals? Do you rehearse year-round?
Well, for the most part, we rehearse September through June. We have a concert in November, so we rehearse for 10 weeks generally, from September until our November concert. And then we have another, usually 10 rehearsals or so until our February concert, and then the same amount until June, except that we also have a family concert that we do for free at the library in April. So that period of time is a sort of double preparation. We're preparing for our June concert, but also for the family concert in April. So
Great. And do you do any fundraising because you are a nonprofit?
Well, yes, we do have one fundraiser per year, and it is in June, and we actually hire a professional chamber group to perform and give a fabulous recital, and that is usually a week after our final concert, and that's our entire fundraiser. In the past, we have had, let's see, we had several yard sales.
we did, yes, and bake sales and that kind of thing,
things
but
like
that's a
that.
long time ago.
Long time
I
ago,
know.
and people love to come to this recital with professional musicians, and we all love going to it too, because it's played by members of our orchestra, our concert mistress, our conductor, who is a professional violist. Let's see, we have George Lopez, who has played as a soloist pianist with us in the past, and they hire several other musicians, cellist, and and also Mark Latham, who was a former music director of the orchestra, to play. And we have a wonderful turnout, and it's a wonderful time.
Even though that's billed as our big fundraiser or so, we're raising money all the time, but because we apply for grants from various sources, and we, as members of the orchestra, we pay dues, and that helps. And where else do we get our money from?
Yeah, but the grants are very important.
Right.
Yeah.
Donations
And
from
donations
from the
donations.
public.
Donations.
When we produce our annual brochure, we have a place where people can look it over and order tickets for the season or for individual concerts. But we also have a line in there that says donations. And many people order tickets and also give us donations.
Oh, that's nice. And I understand that you're out in the community introducing the instruments to the young people in the community, to get them interested in the orchestra? What are some of the events that you've done that at, besides the Fairy Tale Festival?
Well, we do it in our family concert. The free concert that we give at the library is slanted. We call it family because we would like parents to come as well, and some of our regular people in the audience who don't have children come because they just like to see us performing. But it's mostly directed at children. So that's a major outreach we do in terms of children learning about music and the instruments. And we have young performers. We have sometimes very young performers who are excellent, though, who are real little genius types to play. And that's an inspiration for the children in the audience, as well as an inspiration for us.
Absolutely. And you were at the Fairy Tale Festival, right, Mary?
I was. That was last summer, the first time the Chamber Orchestra had a table there, and it was a huge success. I couldn't believe how many kids we had coming by. We had smaller size violins. I think we had a small size cello there. And also I had asked the music store up in Manchester if they would provide some wind instruments, and they came and provided a whole range of wind instruments. So the kids would come by and they could try everything, and we were just swamped for 3 hours. There was no lag in time. And then one of our members, who's a very fine violinist and fiddle player, he came and he was performing, so some of the kids would take one of the small instruments and start playing with him or pretending they were playing with him, and it was a great photo op for parents. So it was loads of fun. We had a great time.
It was so cute. And you labeled it the Instrument Petting Zoo.
Yes.
Which they're still asking about, and I hope that you come back. So we understand you're going to be there this year.
Yes, definitely.
That's great. So what's the mission of the Nashua Chamber Orchestra?
Well, we tried to fill the gap between a major symphony orchestra and a smaller chamber group. So we kind of try to fit in between there, but we focus on lighter works in general that are written for smaller orchestra. However, we sometimes play the same piece in our concert as the Symphony New Hampshire, now it's called, has also scheduled. So we do have 40 members, which is a good-sized group, although an ordinary symphony is 65 members and more. And so it's a lighter sound, you might say, but we think it's just as good. And our conductor is very good at getting the very best out of the individual players.
So we do occasionally have to bring in ringers, what are called ringers, for parts that we don't normally have in the orchestra. Occasionally we'll have a trombone or a tuba or that. Most of the pieces that we play do not require that big orchestra sound. Right. But we have regular people like a harp player who plays often with us. And so if the music requires an extra instrument that we don't have in our normal 40 of us, then we just, scout around and get some people who are willing to come in and help us. So like this particular concert we have coming up in November calls for 4 horns. We normally only have 2 horns so we've beat the bushes and come up with 2 more horns, and they're thrilled to have a chance to play as well.
Absolutely. And you're going to be performing in Nashua at the Nashua Community College and in Milford at their, was it
Milford Town Hall.
The Town Hall.
Yeah.
Which is a lovely auditorium.
And they have a theater in there, right?
They have a large auditorium, a stage, and it's a wonderful space. The acoustics are fabulous. So we really love playing there, and we get a lot of people from that area attending our concert. It's always a good turnout in
There's one
in Milford.
drawback about the Milford Town Hall, and that is that motorcycles go by. And they can be very noisy in the middle of the music. Also,
yeah, well, they pull up to the Milford Oval there, and then they rev, and that can be
And there's also
Can
a
hear it
fire
inside.
alarm there, but
Yes,
we
you
have,
can
we
hear
haven't
it.
been.
That's the reason it's kind
That's
of.
right. We're right next to the fire station. aren't
Yes,
we?
and
Yes.
the fire alarms occasionally go off. But
Aside from
otherwise, it's
that.
a wonderful performance space. And so we really love it there.
And the Nashua Community College has a new auditorium.
Right.
And that is a wonderful space
Right.
also.
Really?
We'll be in there. Let's see, I guess it opened up about a year and a half ago, about a year ago.
About a year ago,
We,
I
we
think.
were performing there last year. This is our second season there. The administration at the community college has been so wonderful to us, and we just love performing there. It's a great space. It's like stadium seating. The acoustics are good. We're on a stage, great lighting, so it's, you know,
It's the
been,
Judd Gregg
yeah,
Auditorium.
It's been
there.
wonderful
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
to be there. Mhm.
yeah, terrific.
And after the concert, we have a reception.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
So they can meet all the players.
yes, and we all bring in goodies, so people look forward to that part of it as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And during the performances, the conductor ordinarily discusses each piece and points out when it was composed and why and whatever and what to look for. And so it's we think it's educational as well as
Oh, absolutely, because some of the stories behind those pieces are fascinating. Do you have a particular piece that you favor over something else?
I'm not good at picking favorites of anything.
Well, I
any
think
stories
our
behind the
whole
pieces?
our whole season this year is wonderful. We're doing a Beethoven Symphony No. 3, which is wonderful. I'm so excited about that.
What's the story behind Beethoven No. 3?
Oh, the Eroica.
Yeah, that was written to celebrate or to commemorate Napoleon's takeover of Vienna or something, and then he changed it because he turned against Napoleon or something. I don't really remember. That's our
so
next
if
concert.
we go to the show, we can get the whole show.
Oh, yeah,
the
we
whole
have
story on
the-
it.
Yeah.
Are there any other pieces that are upcoming that you're doing that you know a little bit of the story behind?
Well, I've got my favorites, but I don't know too much of the history. In our final concert, we're doing a Brahms, the Haydn Variations, which is, I did this in college, in a college orchestra, and fell in love with it, so I'm thrilled about doing it again this year.
And we have 3 young people as soloists this year. Normally we have sort of a balance of ages, but this year they're all young. Our first one is 17. Francesca
Yes.
is 17, isn't she? Violinist. The little violinist who's coming in February is 12, and she's
Wow.
playing 2 pieces with us. The Carmen Fantasy by Sarasate, which is super difficult, and she's playing that, and something called a Yankee Doodle piece. And then in the spring, in June, we have Kevin Chen, who is a young, how old is he?
I think he's about 12. Uh-huh.
Who's playing the whole Grieg piano concerto. Just astonishing young player.
He's not very large in size.
No.
and you would never expect that he could actually cover the thing.
Right.
But
Astonishing
you cannot
player.
tell listening to him that it's not a mature adult
Yeah.
doing it.
So
Exceptionally musical fellow who
Wow.
who has he mastered the keyboard. All right, so that's going to be a highlight.
I
right
know
there.
they're so little, and you can't imagine how they can just fit their hands across
Yeah.
the whole keyboard
Right.
and
I know.
read that kind of music. It's
Amazing.
exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I
No.
didn't want to interrupt you. Oh. So some of the other things that you do in the area are, okay, we'll slice that. But coming back, what got all of you interested in the violins that you play, or the viola, or the?
I play the
Oh.
cello, yeah.
Yeah, I play the viola nowadays, but I actually started on the violin. No one would believe that it could be that long ago, but it was in 1933 when when I was in the 3rd grade. I wanted to take up the piano. It turns out we already had 2 piano players in that very small school on Long Island. And so I signed up for the violin. And so it's been all those years. I did stop for a period of 28 years while I was in the Army, college, and one thing and another, and then I continued to play, and I switched from the violin to the viola somewhere in there. And so now I still play both, but not so often on the violin. So that's and so it's been a lifelong hobby, you might say. And
Absolutely.
nowadays, now that I've been retired for 25 years, it's not only a hobby, it's the only thing I'm doing.
That's great.
Yeah,
And what about yourself?
Well, I didn't have a musical instrument as a child, so I took up the cello when I was 35, which is very late actually to do that. But I loved it from the very beginning, and I studied with a lady who still plays with me in the orchestra. And then I went on and studied with people in Boston and such, and so I could never be as advanced as somebody who had an instrument as a child, because the reading of music is difficult, you know, if you've never had any exposure to it. But I love
math.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's all those fractions.
Exactly. Oh,
But I love it. I've always loved it. And now these days I keep my position in the orchestra partly by my playing and partly by being their librarian. So they have to keep me whether they like it or not.
and did the two of you meet? Did it have anything to do with music? Because you're both married, right?
Art got me to start on the cello. He suggested it because I kept saying I loved the sound of the cello. So finally, we weren't married at the time, and he said, you know, well, if you really want to study the cello, I know somebody who has one who could lend it to you, and I know a teacher. So then
Then you were hooked.
She had no excuse.
I had no excuse, so I did it, and I've always been happy that I did it.
Oh, that's great. And what about you, Mary?
I started violin in school. I grew up in Illinois, and the school district I was in had music education in all the elementary school and high school. So we were able to start taking lessons, group lessons in third grade, which I did. And then when I reached fifth grade, my parents decided I needed to start taking private lessons. And they felt very strongly about all of their children taking some musical instrument, at least through high school. So when I reached about sixth grade or seventh grade and I didn't want to practice and I wanted to quit, they said, absolutely not. Through high school and, you know, no more discussion. And I am so happy that they insisted that I continue, because it has been a lifelong love. And I also stopped playing after college and got married, and you know, when I started my family, and I really got back to it when we moved here to Nashua in 1993. And I went to a Nashua Chamber Orchestra concert because I thought, gee, I'd really like to get back to playing, and maybe I could play again. I'll go to the concert and see if, you know, I could fit in. And so I went to the concert and thought, well, I might be able to do that. Spoke to the conductor then, who was Laura Jackson, their conductor back then, and she said, well, you know, when we start our next season, you know, here's my contact information, get in touch with me, I'll audition you, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's great.
It's an interesting thing about stopping playing for a while, because if you start early enough, your nerve patterns are already set up, and you tend actually not to forget it. I didn't play, as I said, for 28 years. And then in Nashua, I was nominated to the board of the Nashua Symphony at the time. And on the board was the concert mistress, and her name was? Anyway, I said I used to play the violin.
Fritzie. Was it Fritzie?
Yeah, Fritzie Haynes, her name.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, why don't you, get a violin again, and you can sit in the back of the orchestra at a rehearsal or two and see if it comes back. So I did that. I got the violin out, and I sat in the back, and I sat with a fellow who was a great friend of mine for many years afterwards. And at the end of the rehearsal, I said, you know, I haven't played the violin for 28 years. And he said, amazing. I wouldn't have guessed it was a day over 25. I thought that was a great remark.
So you improved a little more after that?
Yes,
right?
yeah, then I started to take lessons again. And,
so it was relatively easy to pick back up, kind of
Yes.
like riding a bike?
Yes, it is
yeah,
something
and
like
that's
that.
it.
Really.
So are you all good at math too? Because there's so much math in music.
I think, yeah, when I was in school, I was
No,
pretty
I
sharp.
wasn't, and I think that's one of the reasons maybe I shied away from learning an instrument, was because I was afraid of that, that calculating all the time where the beats are and, you know, all that kind
So
of
do you
thing.
think it helped you with math once you did get into the music part
Well,
of it?
you know, I wasn't doing much math when I was 35. I worked at the public library eventually, and you know, I could make change for somebody, but otherwise I didn't have too much. Or if I had a recipe, but I didn't really have too much. But that was something to contend with. But it's great. It's a great activity. It really is. Making
So somebody
music is
who's-
so much more than math.
Right. So somebody that has those fears of math and all of that shouldn't be put off by it.
No, I wish I had done something when I was a kid, but I was afraid of it because of that. And you don't have to be afraid of it. You can learn it just like you can learn anything else.
Fantastic. So before we close and meet some more guests from the orchestra and see your new public service announcement, is there anything else that you'd like to leave with our guests that they should know about the Nashua Chamber Orchestra, or why they should stop by and see you at least once to find out what it's all about?
And we're not expensive at the gate. Tickets are very reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, and the students from the college and their faculty, right? They're free.
Right, yeah. The students, staff, faculty at the Nashua Community College can come to our concerts free of charge. As Art says, we're not expensive. It's a wonderful evening. You don't have to worry about being too formal, dressing up. It's very casual. Our conductor is
But
wonderful
you can
about.
still dress up if you want
Oh,
to. right?
absolutely. You can. Yes, you can. But I mean, it's not something that you have to worry about how you look when you come. It's very informal. The conductor explains what we're doing, and then afterwards at our reception, it's just a nice time for everybody to talk and meet and have a good time.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you all for being with me today and sharing so much information about the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. We really appreciate it. And we're going to take a quick break and go to our public service announcement for the Nashua Chamber Orchestra, so you can see the people that are walking around Nashua every day. And then we're going to meet some more members and get their story. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fairy Tale Access. I have some more members from the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. On my left, I have David Brown, Abigail Beutler. Thank you. Sorry. Natalie Berger. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Fairy Tale Access. And I'd like to find out a little bit more about what you do. What instruments do you play? Starting with Natalie.
I play the oboe. It's a double reed instrument. Looks a lot like a clarinet. People who aren't familiar with orchestra instruments often think I play the clarinet. But the sound often sounds like a little bit like a duck, especially if you don't play it well. So it takes a lot of time and practice to learn to play the oboe well. I started off when I was 5 playing violin, but decided when I was about 10 that I wanted to switch to something different. So I started playing oboe when I was 10, and it was something that stuck with me, and I've been playing it ever since.
Wow. And how long have you been a member of the Nashua Chamber Orchestra?
I think it's been about 6 years now, or maybe a little bit more. I started when another oboist was going on maternity leave, and there was a spot that opened up for me, and I was really excited. It wasn't something that I even knew about until this friend of mine said that they were looking for someone, and I was really excited to find an orchestra to play with. It's not something that everyone gets a chance to do, to continue with their instrument into their adulthood.
Oh, that's great. And what about you, Abigail?
I started playing the viola when I retired. I had played the piano all of my life, and when I retired, I thought it was time to try something different, and I asked my piano teacher's husband, who was a concert violinist, if I was too old to learn to play the violin because of the ridiculous position that you have to get into to play it. And he said, and I said, you know, pianists are a dime a dozen, and if I really want to play with other people, I need to play something else. And his response was, well, if you think pianists are a dime a dozen, violinists are a quarter a dozen. You want to learn to play the viola, because violas are $5 a dozen, and no matter how badly you play, you'll always be in demand. And that's why I started to study the viola. And when somebody told me about the Nashua Chamber Orchestra, I went to one of the rehearsals and asked the conductor if I could just listen in and see if I was ready to play. And she asked me, what instrument do you play? And I said, the viola. And she said, do you have it with you? And I said, yes, I do. She said, go sit down. And so that was my introduction to playing with an orchestra, and I've been very happy to do that ever since.
That's fantastic. And David, Mr. Brown.
I play violin, although after hearing Abby speak, I'm thinking maybe I should switch to viola. But I've been playing violin for many more years than I'd like to admit, and specifically I've been playing with the Nashua Chamber Orchestra for, I think, 4 seasons now.
Wow. And where did you start?
Where did I start on violin? I think I was in 1st grade in the public school system in Pittsburgh at the time.
Wow. So why should people come to your concerts? What's the excitement? What draws you in there, and what would draw other people in?
Anyone?
Anyone.
Are you opening it up to any of us?
Any of you?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, when people think of the orchestra, I think young people think that it's older music.
Okay.
If you really look at the research, I find it exciting because its history reaches back to Egypt. So what are the things that inspire you to be part of the Nashua Chamber Orchestra that might inspire others to want to come and check it out? Something old, but something new at the same time.
Well, we commission a lot of new works. And so in our concerts, it's not just the old classics from the 18th, 19th century. We have works that have never been performed before. And those are always exciting to play because they're the modern composers have a different approach to how they put music together. And I think that's one of the things that fascinates our audience, is that they're not coming just to hear things that they could buy recordings of or hear on the radio or go to any concert and hear. They will be hearing things that have never been heard before.
Great. And what's the difference, David, do you think, about going to a live performance versus hearing some of this music on, and we have exceptional quality, you know, first there were records and CDs, and now DVDs and all the new systems we have to listen to it. What's different about going to a live concert?
I think just about any type of event is much more compelling when it's live. On Facebook, I'm constantly seeing people bragging about going to a baseball game live or going to a rock concert live, despite the fact that they see the same games and hear the same artists on the radio or on the TV all the time. But it's the liveness that makes it exciting. And I think the same thing holds true for classical music. When I was growing up, I never would have considered, for instance, going to an opera or going to a show. I never really cared to listen to opera on the radio or listen to show tunes, but when I went to my first live event, it was completely, life-changing. And now I'm a big opera fan as well as a fan of the musicals. And I think the same thing is true, and the Nashua Chamber Orchestra now offers the opportunity for people in the local greater Nashua community to see live quality classical music.
I was just going to think it's pretty accessible music for people too. It's great to have a place where people can go and feel comfortable listening to that music. I think sometimes people might feel a little bit intimidated about going to a classical music event if they've never been, thinking that it's going to be, over their head or it's going to be too formal. And I think the group is, both the audience and the orchestra itself are very welcoming and accessible for people to hear that music, whether they've been coming to orchestra concerts for years and years or if it's their very first one.
Oh, great. And with so much classical music to choose from, how does the orchestra decide what they're going to play in any given concert? Do you all vote on it? Does the conductor say, this is it? This is what you're doing?
The conductor says this is it.
This is it?
Yeah.
David Feltner is our musical director, and he's responsible for that. He does take suggestions from orchestra members as well as members of the audience. But David is pretty well known in the greater Boston area in the musical community, specifically for his programming skills. He tends to take a less traditional approach than most orchestras, where usually you'll hear the older music in the first half of the concert and the later music in the second half. David's programming tends to be more thematic, so you might hear multiple pieces from the same period, or you might hear 20th century pieces before an 18th century piece. So it's a little bit less traditional, but it's an interesting programming style.
Oh, great. So what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the orchestra today? Anybody? David?
Yeah, I would say that it's the same as the challenge facing most businesses today. The old adage is, if you're not growing, you're dying. And sadly, we've actually seen that illustrated recently with the loss of one of our good orchestras in the area a couple years ago, and more recently, one of our other orchestras just reached to the point where they weren't unable to pay their bills, so they actually had to completely restructure, change their leadership and everything. So while I'd like to think that the Nashua Chamber Orchestra is growing, it's not growing as fast as I'd like to see it grow. Because of the economy, of course, we've lost much of our revenue that's been coming previously from corporate contributions. So, we're leaning more heavily on ticket sales now, and I would say that the, participation and patronage by the local community is now more important than ever.
Okay, and if they wanted information on tickets, they could go to your website and actually get the ticket information there.
Yeah.
And we'll show the website on the lower thirds of the screen.
Okay.
But how is the NCO different than other local orchestras? What makes you stand out?
Well, I think one of the things that makes us stand out is that we are an all-volunteer orchestra, and we're playing music for the love of it, not because we're getting reimbursed for it. And I think that shows because obviously if somebody doesn't really love to play and love to be in an orchestra, they're not there. And I think this makes the whole atmosphere much more enjoyable for our audience as well, because they know that we're there because we play music for the love of it.
What do you do when you're not playing music? Natalie, what do you do?
I am a full-time mom. I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And that's changed a lot of my view of why music is important. My daughter, who's now 4, has been coming to orchestra concerts since she was a few months old. And she really has a great picture of music. She is a very visual kid, and I love when we turn on the radio, she says, "Mom, I want orchestra music on." And she requests to put on classical music, which doesn't often happen, I think, with young kids. And she wants to tell me what she thinks is happening. She'll say, "Hey, it's the prince and the princess are dancing," or she'll tell me, "It sounds like someone's chasing someone." So she has a great image in her head. I think that's really been neat to see my kids grow up with music. And I also am a science teacher. So those are the two parts of my life outside of my music.
Wow, and you're able to fit the music into all that.
Yes.
That's
and
great.
I would love to tell you I have lots of time to practice. That doesn't always happen.
I know, but I think I'm with your daughter and the imagery. When I go to the orchestra, I like to imagine what the composer was thinking when he wrote it. So all those images just fly through my head. I have a great imagination. So what about you? What do you do when you're not in?
I'm a retired physicist and electrical engineer, which put me in a rather different position all of my life, being usually the only female engineer or the only female physicist in the organization. But I've always, as I said, I've always played music, and it's just it's sort of a natural progression at this point.
Did you find that the math really helped you with
Well,
music? Or
people say that, but I guess having always been good in math and always been good in science, it's never occurred to me that there was a relationship with the music.
oh, that's great. So it's just an easy transition.
Yes, and now the other thing that I do is ice dance. So I spend a lot of time on the ice, and I enjoy that. It's another challenge, and it's another thing that has to do with music, because the dance has to fit with the music.
And you have to balance yourself.
Excuse me?
And you have to have balance.
It certainly helps.
That's fantastic. And yourself, David?
What do I do when I'm not doing music? I'd like to be able to say that I'm playing tennis, I'm playing racquetball, or hang gliding, or socializing with friends, which are all things I enjoy doing. But the reality is these days, I just embarked on a new career, so most of my time I'm working.
Wow. But that's
I'm
great.
not practicing either.
And you all find time for your music. That's exciting. Where do you see the orchestra going 5 years from now?
I'd like to see it twice as big as it is now, with a healthier budget, and to me the most important thing is I'd like to be more widely known. I think it's sad that I can walk down Main Street and know that less than 10% of the people I'm bumping into are even aware that we exist. So I'd like to see in 5 years, I'd like to see our awareness in the community rise significantly.
Okay, so everybody, you heard that. When you see David walking down the street, make sure that you've been to a concert and say hello and let him know. So most of the orchestras that I looked into follow the school year for their session, with weekly rehearsals, and earlier in the interview we heard you have about 4 performances a year. So who started the venue that you continue playing through the summer?
That'd be David.
Yeah, that'd be me. We started that last year. You know, I had always missed having an opportunity to play the violin through the summer, and unfortunately I don't have enough self-discipline to do it on my own. So I kind of need to have a driver in the form of an ensemble. And it occurred to me that other people might feel the same way last year, so I sent out a couple emails and asked if there were any other musicians who might be interested in getting together on an informal basis for a weekly rehearsal or something. It turned out we ended up having 26 people from the orchestra, and it ended up being a very good balance. We got an excellent young conductor from the New England Conservatory to come up, and he picked out a great repertoire for us, and we ended up performing for 125 people at the Hunt Center.
Oh, really? And are you going to be together this summer?
We have plans. We're starting to plan for it. It's not set in stone yet, but we're hoping to do it again next year, yes.
So would you be together and practicing by July?
Yes.
I could give you the opportunity to perform in front of 5,000 people.
Sounds
Good to us. That would be great.
All right. So we'll book you for the Nashua Fairy Tale Festival.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, we had a great time with
you
our
did?
table there last summer.
Oh, okay.
And I was sort of in charge of it as the one with the small kids. I volunteered to do something that I knew they'd be coming to anyway. And we had a great set of kids come, and everyone was so excited to try our instruments and to learn about music. It was really, really fun.
Really, were the crowds easy to handle, or?
We learned some lessons about things we'll do next year that might be
Okay.
a little different. We need many more orchestra volunteers to ensure that the instruments are available for the kids, but then also that they're safe. We had so many excited kids, and there are only two of us there to try
Introduce.
to get
Oh,
those
yeah.
instruments. But it was really nice to see kids. Some came and said, "Oh yeah, I've always wanted to play the trumpet, but I've never been able to try one. Can I try one?" Or kids who had really never seen some of the instruments and wanted to check them all out. So it was a really fun event, and I think that we'll be doing it hopefully next year too.
Oh, that's great.
I have to confess that I walked by the booth, and when I saw the crowd that Natalie and her friend were dealing with, I turned around and walked away.
Nice, David.
I couldn't deal with it, but,
And then
but they
added
were
your
doing
own two
fantastic.
kids.
I did. I threw my other kids at them, and I walked by. But they were doing a great job. It was a very cool experience for the kids.
They really liked it. I got a lot of emails about the instrument petting zoo,
Good.
which Mary coined, and I think it's such a great idea because they really got to touch and experience the instruments. So maybe you'll have new members coming in.
That would be great.
And I heard you have some young performers coming up this season. Can you tell me a little bit about them and what it's like to work with people? I think one of the young men is 12.
Yeah, we have a 12-year-old pianist who's a student of Mila Filatova, who's top-notch piano instructor in the area, by the way, in Manchester. And we're lucky to have her in the community. So Kevin Chen, I believe is his last name, unbelievably talented young musician, international competitor, 12 years old, and he's playing the full Grieg concerto with us.
Wow.
And he played a portion of that with us last year at our family concert. And what stuck in my mind about some of the young players is they're so humble, and they're amazing, but they want to just keep getting better. And I remember at the end, he didn't even bow. I think he was so probably relieved that he had finished and nervous and everything else. And I kind of wanted him to come back because he had done such a great job. And now I'm really excited to see him again this year.
Wow, well, it sounds like you have some exciting programs coming up. And let's see, is there anything else that you would want people to know about the orchestra to get them engaged? And
Well, I think one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is that after each concert, we have a reception at which we serve goodies that the orchestra members have made, and it's an opportunity to meet with the individual members of the orchestra, to meet with the conductor, and generally to find out what we're like as human beings that aren't just sitting on a stage playing instruments.
And that's exciting. You
Yes,
know,
it's
because
it's exciting for us also to have a chance to meet with our audience, and as you say, it's exciting for the audience to have a chance to meet with us off stage.
That's great. Is there anything else? Anything that we didn't cover?
I think it'd be appropriate to mention that, we're here not just to reach out to the community to expand our audience, but we'd also like to reach out to other fellow musicians who might not have been aware of us prior and might be interested in joining the orchestra. We're always looking for talented musicians.
That's great. I hope there's a lot out there because music is not something that I'm good at. I'm good at finding great players. So hopefully we'll find some great players to join the Nashua Chamber Orchestra. And please come out and check them out because you never know until you experience new things. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thanks for
Very
having us.
excited. My pleasure. And before we go, though, one last question. Since you are involved with the Fairy Tale Festival, do any of you have a favorite book?
We're talking children's books?
Any book? Like any book ever?
Probably The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell.
Okay. Why was it your favorite book?
Because of the breadth of the human experience that it covered. I mean, it was everything from anthropology, religion, politics, science fiction. It just covered the scope, and it is primarily science fiction, which is my favorite genre.
That's great. And what about you two?
I think one of my favorite books is Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. We were compelled to read it in high school, but I've read it several times since then, and every time I read it, I see things in it that I didn't recognize the time before, and the way he interweaves the two cities and what's happening in one versus the other, I find very fascinating.
Great.
I enjoy many, many books, but thinking about maybe a younger audience, my very favorite book from younger years was Anne of Green Gables. And I can't wait until my daughter's old enough to read it to her. And I think I spent many, many summer days reading every one of Ellen Montgomery's books that I could get my hands on. And just her imagery and just the characters and how they could get into trouble but still find their way out of it. Just things that really spoke to me when I was a girl.
I know, I love that too, with the growing pains and everything else. All right, well, thank you again, and we hope to have you back very soon. And the PSA that we'll hear again at the end of the show will also incorporate some of the music that you perform, so it'll give people a little idea, a little tease to get them in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Change the conversation. Try something different, something new, yet classic and timeless, with the Nashua Chamber Orchestra, a group of volunteer musicians that you may see around town at any given time, with music and venues that have historical roots reaching back to ancient Egypt. In real life, these 40 players are high school students, physicians, software engineers, business executives, housewives, and retirees in their 80s. Under the direction of conductor David Feltner, they play music that is simply magical. It can make you soar, and if you let it, it can bring you to that special place, releasing memories of days gone by or dreams yet to be fulfilled. As you experience these players' love of music, you never know where it will take you or who you will meet. Just sit back and let your imagination take control, leaving behind the worries of today for when the concert ends, as surely it must. You can engage with others at the free after-concert reception, meet the players, and experience what it was like to be a member of a king's court. The encounter may be just the escape you're looking for. This November, the Nashua Chamber Orchestra will present a concert at the Nashua Community College on November 10th and again on November 11th at the Milford Town Hall, one of the few places you can get all dressed up or not, and where chivalry will never go out of style. For tickets and more information, go to www.nco-music.org.